we'll take it.
The May membership meeting. We find our seats and start shouting loading sandwiches. My name is Dave Anderson. I'm the chair of the GMC. I'd like to welcome one new GMC member to today's meeting and into membership, Austin Reeder, president of Freighter Hospital. Austin joined Freighter from New Orleans in February, and he was supposed to be joining us today. He's not joining us today, so we'll put that in the future file. Today's meeting comes with a view. And if you're wondering what that means, just look at it. Thanks to members Andy Ronsky and Ben Rickers. We're so thankful to have been invited back to Foley. Sometimes that doesn't always happen for me, and so here we are. And so last year we gathered in this room to talk about housing. Today we're back addressing two more important issues: transit and education. We're joined today by County Executive David Crowley. Right there. David, good to see you. Dave Steele, Executive Director of Mobilize, and new MPS Superintendent, Dr. Brenda Casilius.
She's not here yet.
She's not here yet.
But I think she's coming.
But she's coming. Did you want to do this? Right. Each will have time to speak throughout the meeting, but I'd like to kick things off today with today's host, Ben Rickers. Ben is a partner at Foley and a relatively new GMC member. As chair of the Aviation and Aircraft Transaction and Services team, we know that Ben understands the value of transit. Please welcome Ben as today's gracious host.
I want to welcome you all to the Foley Largest office here at the U.S. Bank Center. As David mentioned, I just recently joined here a couple of months ago to the GMC. I'm very excited to learn more and lend anything I can on the four focus areas of the GMC: financial strength, education, public safety, and infrastructure. I've been at Foley Larger now for 19 years. I'm very excited for the future of both Milwaukee and Foley. As some of you may know, Foley has been an anchor tenant in this building, which is the tallest in the state, since it first opened in 1973, over 50 years ago. The space has gone through various renovations, with the current renovation and this lease slated to be completed by the summer of 2020, so that the DNC can host its Democratic National Convention here. As you know, that event never left Delaware, so completion here is slightly delayed, although it was used for the RNC convention last year. If you haven't already, as David mentioned, I encourage you to, after we conclude, to walk around the floor to get a different view going from north, south, east, and west. If you look north, you can see the glorious Lake Park from here, as well as sort of how the east side sort of juts into the lake and then back in to Whitefish Bay. Looking west, you'll be able to see the AmFam Field, Marquette Campus, and the domes. Looking south, you'll see the Summerfest Ground, the Allen Bradley Clock Tower. And looking further, you can see St. Luke's, and then ultimately you can also see the airstrips for the Milwaukee and Mitchell Airport. And obviously looking east, you see pretty much nothing but water. Given Michigan's about 120 miles east of here. Although I would argue you're not missing much because I prefer this side of Lake Michigan much more yellow. And those who may not be familiar with Foley and Lardner, we have about 1,100 attorneys across 26 offices worldwide. For our last fiscal year, we generated approximately $1.3 billion in revenue, which placed us as the 45th largest firm in the country. Although we have a national platform, we count some of the country's largest clients as clients. The Milwaukee office has been the first. It remains our largest, both in terms of revenue and headcount. This office was started back in 1842, which means we've been serving clients for about 183 years and have been in business for longer than the state of Wisconsin. At Foley, public and community service are core to our values. It's witnessed by the fact that we were one of the only major law firms to become a national partner with the Boys and Girls Club, which was a transaction or a partnership that Linda Benfield Foley partner here in the Milwaukee office and former GMC member, helped negotiate. Additionally, Jay Rothman, who spent his entire legal career here in the Milwaukee office, is currently the president of the University of Wisconsin system. Finally, and of some relevance to the topic today, Foley attorney Bruce Keys was the co-founder of Public Bicycles, which is the Milwaukee bike sharing program, and has significantly enhanced and increased the mobility options for residents. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joel. Thank you all, and enjoy the view. And like I said, please feel free to walk around and get a different view of the city from each direction.
Thank you, Ben. And I want to thank Ben and Andy Ronsky for hosting us today. Andy is not here because his son is graduating today from Emory down in Atlanta. We wish him the best, along with many of us who have educational transitions and celebrations that are happening in the coming weeks. This is a great place to have any of our events, and we really appreciate what you do here at Foley. It's a rare time when I can come to a meeting of the GMC and look out the window and pretty much say I can see my house from here. I live in Brewers Hill, just north of downtown, so the views are wonderful for all of us. We have a real robust agenda again today, so I'm going to keep my updates brief before introducing our speakers. We also will make sure that we let you know some of these things via email once we're done. As evidenced by today, we're moving into the warmer months of the year when it comes to weather. And all of us who live and do business in the city recognize that these are often the time of the year where violence, especially homicides, increase in our community. Through the first 5 months of the year, homicides in Milwaukee have increased slightly over the same period a year ago. While those are relatively small numbers, most of that activity happens in the second half of the year. We all want to maintain the trends that have been going in the right direction on this and other issues related to public safety over the last several years. Our Public Safety Task Force has been gathering with organizations in the community that are focused on complementing and enhancing the efforts of law enforcement. We'll continue those discussions this summer. Many of you may recall that we've partnered with Wisconsin Policy Forum on public safety projects since 2023. In the coming weeks, the forum will be ready to release findings on juvenile justice that will help inform some of the community's work moving forward. In addition, the forum and the GMC have partnered to examine the Community Justice Council and explore whether we can learn lessons from other communities to make that body a stronger tool in bringing partners and resources together. That report will also be released in the coming weeks. In an overlap with another major public safety issue, our GMC Fiscal Strength partnership with the City of Milwaukee is currently focused on potentially implementing vehicular-centric policies like red light cameras and routing that can have an impact on reckless driving, that epidemic that we still face on our community's roads. Work still lies ahead in the Wisconsin State Legislature to enable the use of some of these tools, and we're also working with the city on other creative means for addressing this problem. The city has also advanced conversations with other local municipalities related to sharing services to reduce costs and increase efficiency. We'll be actively engaged in those discussions moving forward in 2025. The Infrastructure Committee met in April for an update on potential lakefront developments. As you might expect, the next steps on the pedestrian bridges that connect this neighborhood to the cultural attractions on the east side of Lincoln Memorial Drive are currently in flux due to questions related to federal funding. The conversations moving forward will enable members to assist on specific areas such as Veterans Park and Lakeshore State Park, as well as the connections amongst cultural attractions. These gatherings that we have had of about 50 lakefront stakeholders have reminded this group of the influential role that they play in one of Milwaukee's most important treasures, our lakefront. We expect further action steps to be outlined before the end of the year. One note about the work that's currently underway in Madison, not Milwaukee. The legislature's Joint Finance Committee has begun its work in earnest on the next 2-year budget for the state of Wisconsin. There are many significant issues where the flow of public funds from Milwaukee to Madison will be dramatically affected by the state budget. early learning, K-12 education, investment in higher ed, healthcare, transportation, transit, just to name a few. We've already provided some opportunities to weigh in on issues as GMC members. We'll suggest others in the coming weeks, as the actions that take place in Madison in May and June will have a direct influence on what happens in Milwaukee in the next 2 years. Today we're going to have somewhat of a bifurcated meeting, though both of the topics of discussion, transportation and education, are critically important to the present and future economic fortunes of our community. Innovation and new approaches are needed in both, and we'll learn more about new approaches on these issues from leaders in both areas today. So now we're going to start with our guest speakers. We'll first hear from Dave Steele, Executive Director of Mobilize. Mobilize unites leaders around shared strategies and actions to address southeastern Wisconsin's transportation challenges. Most recently, they've launched and seen success with FlexRide, an on-demand workforce transportation solution that has provided over 120,000 rides since the program's launched just 3 years ago. Following Dave, we're going to hear from County Executive David Crowley, who will address the county's evolving and innovative transportation solutions and how national transit and funding challenges at all levels threaten the sustainability of Milwaukee County Transit's ability to service our community. Please welcome to start with Dave Steele.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, members of the Greater Milwaukee Committee. Thank you, Foley, for hosting in this amazing space, looking out over Lake Michigan. So, as Joel mentioned, I'm Dave Steele. I'm Executive Director of a group called Mobilize, and appreciate the correct pronunciation. We often get Mobilize or other types of things, but we're a 501c3 nonprofit. I like to think of nonprofits as non-governmental organizations. If you spend time outside of the U.S., you often hear NGO rather than nonprofit. And I really like that term because we're not the government. And in some places where sometimes you need a non-governmental actor to come in and innovate and test out some new ideas, that's what we were able to do around the transportation issue. So transit, why is it important? I would say that everyone in this room, whether or not you currently ride transit, at some point in your life, very likely you did, and you're probably 1 degree removed from somebody who currently does. Talking with everyone in this room here, I'm hearing about family members who can't drive due to various reasons, and the transit system is their independence. I'm hearing from business leaders who have a lot of employees that rely on transit to get to work every day. Transit in Milwaukee, I think, is one of those things that it's almost like water or the internet. You don't really appreciate it until it's gone. You don't really appreciate it until it might kind of decline a little bit. Then you realize, oh, wow, I really, do rely on this, even if I don't ride it myself. But when we think about what is transit, I think we all kind of have an idea in our mind of what it is. If you live in Milwaukee, you're probably thinking of a 40-foot long bus going down the street. We used to call them the green limousine when I was a kid. And it would pick you up every couple of blocks and take you along on a route, weaving through the city. If you're from a big city, you're probably thinking in your mind of, the hub and the spokes. You got your downtown and then spokes that kind of radiate out from that with rapid transit to get folks downtown and then back up to the suburbs. When we think about transit, we think of all of those things and more. It's really all different ways that people can get around free and independent, no matter where they're at in their life, economically, financially, with various disabilities or limitations on their ability to drive. So that includes things like scooters, and that includes things like the bike share system, Bubble. It includes things like Uber and Lyft. When you think of the change that's happened over the last 10 years, if someone had told me in 2015 that I would land at an airport and then get in the back of somebody's car that I found on an app, I would think that sounds a little crazy. But we all do it every day when we ride in an Uber. If you would have told me that I'd be scanning an e-scooter and zipping around the streets of whatever city I'm in, I also would have thought that would have been a little crazy. But we see people doing it every day here in Milwaukee. So our organization is really about advocating for all different types of transit and really pushing the envelope on that innovation. So like I said, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have a board made up of regional civic and business leaders. I know that my chair, Tracy Johnson, is here today. I saw her come and go. There's Tracy. Hello, Tracy. So we have a board of 12 members, and we're not so much transportation leaders on the board. We have a few of those, of course, content experts, but it's really folks from the business and civic leadership community. And what we do is we convene. We start with the conversation. So the story of FlexRide really started late 2010, so I'm going to say 2018 or so. And the whole conversation around regional transit was messy, to put it in more positive terms, a little more challenging, because we had seen bus routes that had declined in ridership. I don't know if you remember the old Jobs line that used to take folks out to Menominee Falls, New Berlin. Those routes were discontinued. The ridership just wasn't there to be able to sustain that. And as our role as a convener, I figure in the nonprofit sector, and the NGO sector, I'm going to start using that more often. The NGO sector, as long as I can raise the money to do a thing, and as long as it's not unethical, and I can convince my board and funders that it's a good idea, we can experiment and try different things. We can think, what if? So we brought groups together. Milwaukee County, MCTS, Milwaukee County Transit System was part of those conversations from the jump. Great to see Julie Esch and Christina Hoffman here from MCTS, great partners along on this journey. We had Waukesha County at the table, the Waukesha County Business Alliance, and we really kind of thought, why not, right? So rather than dwell on all the things that we can't seem to do as a region, let's talk about some of the things that maybe we can do. And out of these conversations, we looked around, we looked externally, outside of the United States, places like Latin America, where my dad's from, Guatemala City, where they have these things called colectivos. And if you've been to Mexico City, you may have seen like a smaller van that rolls around in the neighborhoods, picks people up along the way. It's sort of like an Uber combined with a bus. And in my opinion, innovation isn't really about new ideas. It's about existing ideas that I can steal and repurpose, and not take credit for, but repurpose for our own purposes. So that was really the genesis of the idea that led to FlexRide. And when we launched our service in March of 2022, our county executive, David Crowley, was there, and our mayor was there. We had our ribbon cutting. There was no ribbon cutting. We had about 5 riders. We had a lot of the TV cameras there too. We'd like, okay, we have 5 riders. Let's hope we can improve upon that. That was 3 years ago, and we've given 120,000 rides since then to about 5,000 unique individual riders. Our folks are getting picked up in the city of Milwaukee, and they're getting dropped off at suburban locations. The whole experience of a FlexRide is similar to an Uber. So I have a video here that my amazing team, LaShonda and Sherry, LaShonda Jones and Sherry Hanneman, we were able to put together. And I'm going to today's deal with FlexRide Milwaukee, and today we're going to take a ride on Milwaukee's newest on-demand workforce transportation service. What we do is we pick people up right near their home and we take them directly out to the suburbs for only $3. So it is a lot like an Uber, but there's big differences. First difference, it's going to be a shared ride with other passengers. And the other big difference is that we ask people to walk a block or two to a pickup spot. So how do you get a FlexRide? It's as easy as pulling up the app on your phone, calling for a ride just like an Uber, then we'll come pick you up, usually with an ETA of only about 20 minutes. What we're going to do today is actually go for a ride in a FlexRide. So our friend Zachary here is going to come pick us up.
Hello, I'm Zachary. I'm a FlexRide Milwaukee driver. I've been driving for 2.5 years. I'm very proud of what we do. I'm proud of the program that we have and servicing the Milwaukee area and getting people to work and from work. An average day, I think I pick up probably about close to 50 people a day, which I work 5 days a week. So what's that, about 250 people a week? I do. It's great conversation for people to want to go to different jobs or say, hey, how's your job or what's the pay, or just general conversations of good people going to work. A lot of families, we say, a lot of cousins and a lot of moms, a lot of dads. It's a good thing to have for the city, and I'm really proud to be able to drive people to work on a regular basis. They need that. People need to get around and to help that stress of the day for them. We get a majority of people that drive FlexRide, Milwaukee, do not own a vehicle, but some people do, and they have the flexibility of using us to take them to work because maybe they have car trouble and they can't afford it right now, and they use us for that purpose because they know that, hey, Flex is there for me, and we could, get to work. But a lot of people that drive us do not have a vehicle. They rely on us to get them to work because they don't have a license or a means of buying a vehicle. So they do use us for that.
So you have a lot of people come out here to Freighter, to Menominee Falls.
Actually, I've driven people who, one, surgery tech, her car messed up, drove her here. A lot of CNAs that work here. A couple of people that work in EDS, environmental services. So we provide a lot of great services for a lot of different professionals that work here.
So from beginning to end, our typical ride time is only 45 minutes from when you call the ride, when it comes to your house, and then takes you out to your location. Compare that to the alternative of many hours long bus rides at times and very, very long walks oftentimes. This is a service that really meets people where they're at. That's a bit of a demonstration, as you can see how FlexRide works. So we mentioned the 45 minutes. Now we compare that to what came before, the JAWS line that I mentioned earlier that was discontinued due to low ridership. On any given day, we're giving 2 to 3 times the number of rides as that former bus route in our service for a comparable amount of public investment. So we're meeting people where they're at, we're taking them where they need to go in a way that's more cost effective for the public investment. Now someone had mentioned to me earlier, I need to tell my brother about FlexRide. And I say, huge caveat. You need to either be in or get into the blue zone, and we'll take you out to one of the yellow zones. It doesn't mean you have to live in the blue zone. You can take a scooter or a ride from a buddy or an MCTS bus into the blue zone. Oh, Dave, aren't you competing with the bus system or with scooters? No, we love it when people use a different mode to come in and ride one of our Flex services. It's a win-win, right? The bus system, the scooter companies, Bubbler, they get a customer, and then we get one too. And in fact, if they can go a little bit closer out to Menominee Falls on that MCTS bus, that's less money that we have to spend to pick them up. So it's a perfect synergy, I think, with the myriad of options here in kind of our transit portfolio in Milwaukee. A little graph here showing our ridership. So like I said, 125,000 rides since we launched, and we're settling in at about 4,000 to 5,000 rides a month, and that represents about 500 individual riders. Our typical rider rides about 10 times a month. Where are they going? Mainly Menominee Falls and New Berlin. Those are our largest destinations by far. We do have a service that goes to Oak Creek and Franklin. Now, when you adjust for the number of jobs that are within these zones, it's not quite as wide of a disparity. But clearly the Menominee Falls service, the largest number of destinations and then therefore riders. Where are they going? They're going to good paying jobs, 19, 20, 21 bucks an hour, enough to make good money, but unfortunately not enough to hold down a reliable car. A very common use case for a flex rider is seeking that $19, $20 an hour at FedEx. Well, guess what? Those jobs all exist outside of bus routes. So if you don't have a car, you're not going to be able to access that opportunity. And people ask, well, do people ride with it over the long term? Do they get a good job, raise a few dollars, and get some money in their bank account and buy a car? Absolutely they do. But I don't see that as a loss for us. I see that as a win, because what we've done is given people choice. Some people are going to choose their own set of wheels. I do. It makes sense for most of us. But this is a way that they can get that foothold into that job with something reliable and predictable. So I'm going to hand it over to my friend and former state representative and current county executive, David Crowley. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I want to say thank you all for having us all today. I feel like this is the meeting of Dave. Since he's had Dave Anderson, Dave Steele, and now Dave Crowley. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity and letting me share a little bit today about our local transit systems. And although we are facing some challenges, together we can meet them head on. And we can do that through innovative approaches as well as partnerships. So I'm really excited to be here. And to be honest with you, this isn't something that we just want to do. This is something that we have to do. We have to strengthen our public transportation. Quite frankly, it's going to take all of us coming together in order to do that. And so right here, we want folks to know that because transportation is key, we want to move our region forward. I think not just here in Milwaukee, but any urban community our size, but we all understand that transportation is extremely essential. So having a modern, safe, enhanced transportation system will hope to grow our regional economy, but also is going to help us to connect people to their family, their friends, but more importantly to employment, educational, essential services that would literally help meet the needs of our growing workforce right here in our own community. But it also helps to meet the needs of our growing business community as well, as folks in the public are utilizing many other public transit options, as Dave Steele alluded to. And so to give you a little context about what we do, in Milwaukee County, we support the entire regional transportation system throughout Milwaukee County. But in addition to providing our transit services through both our airports, through our buses, and through paratransit systems, our team helps to provide the highway maintenance and construction services on both state and county roads, as well as our county bridges. So Milwaukee County Transit, we are celebrating 50 years of delivering for our entire community. Actually delivering, I would say, people to economic opportunities. And with our dedicated team of more than 1,000 bus operators, mechanics, as well as our administrative staff, our Milwaukee County Transit System provided more than 25 million rides last year, and it helps to generate a massive amount of economic impact throughout our region. And so when we think about particularly our MCTS paratransit program, what many of you would know as Transit Plus, it is administered through our Milwaukee County Transit staff, and we contract with TransDev to provide some ADA accessible vans for our eligible transit riders as well. And so with this particular slide, we want to let folks know that our ridership every single year has been increasing to get back to those pre-pandemic levels. And so since the pandemic, bus ridership has been steadily increasing over the years, again with more than 25 million riders last year. And our services, quite frankly, are in high demand. But we're also limited. We're limited to the number of bus routes that we can currently provide, and that is due to our funding limitations that we face right here within Milwaukee County. And so more support in the future, it would allow us not only to continue, but also allow us to expand the services across the entire region. I'm bad with this, so bear with me. So we don't just provide, again, bus transit services. We also manage our Transit Plus program, provides paratransit services for more than 6,000 individuals who particularly have disabilities. Transit Plus provides about 350,000 rides annually and is another high demand service for county residents who need to make sure they're not only connecting to get to work, but connecting with the healthcare providers and just meeting their basic needs and services. But both our transit and paratransit services, they are facing some challenges, as Milwaukee has the only transit agency in the United States without a dedicated local funding source. I'll repeat that. We're the only community without a dedicated funding source towards paratransit. And so through innovative management approaches, we have been able to actually keep our looming fiscal cliff at bay. But however, in spite of the restructuring of the routes and optimizing our services to the best of our ability, we are still facing that fiscal cliff. So we're anticipating that by 2028, expenses will greatly exceed our revenues that we bring in. So this fiscal cliff is going to make it much harder, not just on Milwaukee County, but on businesses and their employees who rely on transit every single day, and those who utilize our transit system to get to work, and so they can find possibly their routes being eliminated in the future. And that is because the number one reason residents ride our transit system is so they can get to work. And so cutting these bus routes, they can have a significant impact on your employees, on our county residents, and many of our businesses. And so just to give you a point, Milwaukee County Transit System connects Milwaukee County residents to 386,000 jobs. That's a lot of jobs. We want to keep people employed. We have over 148 companies who participate in our Commuter Value Pass program. This is a tax-free benefit that is given to employees for unlimited rides on our Milwaukee County Transit routes that we have. And we have some of our larger employers who actually utilize this program. Some of this are in this room today. Folks like the Wisconsin Center District, the Wisconsin State Fair, the Milwaukee Bucks, and that also includes the Milwaukee Regional Medical Complex located in Wauwatosa. And as you can see here, many of the employers who are participating in this program are also some of the major drivers of economic activity, and not just locally, but across our region and across the entire state. But despite many of these fiscal challenges, MCTS continuously look to increase ridership to help to improve the customer service experience. In Wisconsin, right here in Milwaukee County, we launched the first ever bus rapid transit line with Connect One. Now this is a much faster and innovative transit line that was first in the state to have a dedicated bus lanes with off-board fare collection and serviced by battery electric buses. But we also have a new fare collection with Wisco mobile app that accepts mobile payments that allows our riders to eventually be able to use their credit cards as payments. And what's really key and unique about the Wisco mobile app is that now individuals who utilize that within MCTS, there's a partnership as well with Waukesha. There's a partnership as well with the HOP as well, so they can utilize those payment systems no matter what mode of transportation or who they're actually using. But we also just launched an apprenticeship program within the Milwaukee County Transit System as well. And this is really to help us not only retain, but to help recruit folks to come into the transit system. And so this apprenticeship program is allowing us to focus on skilled trades, those mechanics, figuring out how we can get them in the door, but as well as our bus operators at the exact same time. And if you have not visited our merch store, please do. We just launched this MCTS merch store. I love the fact that when I'm out in the community, I'm starting to see many of the tote bags, the hats, and the sweatshirts out in the community, which lets me know that people are paying attention. Lets me know that we also got good swag. This is just one of the innovative and creative ways that we are employing to help us bring more revenue right here within our transit system. We're also taking some significant steps to help really address one of the top concerns of not only our riders, but our operators at the exact same time, and that is public safety. So we have increased the safety and the security of the entire community as part of this historic investment in transit security by Milwaukee County. So this is a very brand new in-house program that has brought on board 19 public safety officers that are patrolling our buses along all of our routes throughout Milwaukee County. And this program, quite frankly, has been well received, not only by our operators, but our riders alike, and they would actually like to see this particular program expand. And even though I am here to talk about our Milwaukee County Transit System, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to talk about all the other transportation options that we offer throughout Milwaukee County. The Milwaukee County Department of Transportation provides administration, and it manages all the activities necessary for the efficient day-to-day operations within our Milwaukee International Airport and the Lawrence J. Timmerman Field. And it is through the same culture of innovation that's allowing us to improve our bus transit services, and we are seeing many new and exciting developments at our Milwaukee International Airport. And so as you can see from this particular slide, that passenger traffic for the full year of 2024, it totaled more than 6.3 million, and which is actually on pace to be 5% higher than the previous year. So that means 300,000 more passengers have chosen to fly through MKE for their air travel just last year. And this is crucial to the growth and the success of our airport. So if you want to see more direct flights, you have to utilize MKE International Airport. So we're really excited because we do see airlines are continuously adding service to our airport where passengers are boarding their flights, and we are actually seeing more and more people actually flying through MKE, and not just regionally. I like to say our largest suburb, Chicago, has been also coming to also utilize our airport as well. And so, as you all know, more passengers means more revenue for that airport, which gives us the greater ability to actually continue to make investments. And many of you may not know, but our airport is probably the only department that is self-supporting. And so if you want to see that airport grow, we need you to utilize that airport. And so what that really means is that no property tax dollars are used to actually run the airport. The more money you spend in our airport, the more we can invest back into that airport. And so also we have some exciting things. Just in February, we also kicked off the MKE South Air Cargo Project. Now this is a big development, particularly for its kind, for the airport in many generations. Now this is going to be a new state-of-the-art facility that's going to benefit manufacturers and many other businesses throughout Milwaukee County and throughout the region. It's going to help to create more jobs, but also bring additional economic impact to our community. This option will also give Wisconsin businesses, that particular community, dramatically faster shipping options and avoid the time wasted trying to transport items in and out of the severely delayed air cargo terminals in Chicago. Got to give them another day. But we also expect it to generate over $1.3 million in annual aircraft landing fees and over $1 million in annual ground lease rents and fees. Again, this is how we're going to be able to continue to build that airport. But this summer, we're also anticipating work to begin on the new international terminal. And so the goal is to better serve our international travel and to help attract more international flights. And so we're looking to relocate all of our international arrivals from the current terminal to the new Concourse E. It'll be a two-gate, 55,700 square feet terminal that could accommodate larger aircrafts and hundreds of passengers at a time. And so this is truly exciting as far as what the possibilities could really be. And I do want to say thank you to many of the individuals in this room for helping us to lobby on this particular effort to make sure that this can actually become a reality for us. And then as we look ahead to the future of our region, it's key that investments continue to grow so we can move forward as a community. And so sustainable funding is key. And the only way that we do that is through partnerships. So we're looking at every single option that we can to make sure that we're securing dedicated funding so we can continue to maintain our transportation system. In our Milwaukee County Transit System, we have a 3-year strategic plan that will include a variety of funding options to help us secure our financial future. But I also want to give a quick shout out related to Governor Evers because he included a provision in this upcoming budget that would have created a regional transit authorities as well. And RTAs, this is a government entity that plans as well as implements the high capacity transportation system, particularly within the defined region. And we know that reliable transportation is going to be key to exploring how we can continue to be leaders, not just here in the southeastern Wisconsin region, but across this state. And it's not just about building bodies. This is about how are we retaining and recruiting, not just people, but businesses also to look at the Milwaukee County region so we can continue to grow and become even more viable. And I would say that we have found some solutions as it relates to transit-oriented development. And some of them may include but are not limited to opportunities like the Couture Transit Concourse. That was a transportation-oriented development. The MRC, the MRMC campus transit circulation, the Bell R. Phillips Plaza multimodal transportation space, as well as the commercial opportunities within our airport. And so, again, You always hear me talk about, see the mayor is here as well, and you always talk about how partnerships is key. And that's going to be key in making sure that we continue to have a reliable transportation system that not only serves the individuals in this community, but serves every single business throughout every corner of Milwaukee County. And I want you all to know that my administration, we're dedicated, not only working with our state and our federal partners, but working with our businesses as well to make sure that we're keeping our eyes on the prize. We want to make sure that we have the shared growth, not only when it comes down to growing the region, but making sure that we're growing the economic opportunities at the exact same time. And so we're going to continue to seek these opportunities to invest in our transportation options so all of our residents can easily and safely travel to their jobs, to their healthcare opportunities, to educational opportunities and things of that nature. And so that is my overview. We will have a panel that will give me an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into the weeds related to questions that you may have or how you can get involved in strengthening our transportation system. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
That was the Phil Donahue portion of the program. I sent you guys a couple questions beforehand, but I'm going to start with one that's not on there. I mentioned that this is kind of a bifurcated meeting, and both the issues we're talking about, education, transit, very much important workforce development issues. I was heartened to see, David, the logos of a lot of the members here that are involved and invested in what you're doing in county transit, but it's not an issue that inflames passion like education does, like K-12. Can you just talk a little bit for the group here why you think that is, and how do we make this as central an issue, either of the days, for its importance towards workforce?
Absolutely. Okay, you can hear me now? So I think a lot of people, when it comes down to education, you can see how it affects your everyday life every single day. Whether you're thinking about the workers, whether you're thinking about your employees and their children, people see that up front. When we think about transit in particular, not everybody, for example, in downtown Milwaukee utilize our transit services. And so sometimes that's a second thought for many folks in our community. But let's be very honest, even though some folks who may work in the downtown area may not utilize our Milwaukee County transit system, those who you all are servicing, those folks who are working other jobs, it's imperative for them to have access to transit. Our young people, matter of fact, myself, I had one school bus route my entire time from elementary school to my high school years. Otherwise, I had to rely on the Milwaukee County transit system to actually get me to and from school. But it also provided me an opportunity as a young person to actually learn and understand every nook and cranny, because when you're on public transit, you get to see a lot that most people try to avoid when they're actually in their cars. And so I would say that we have to do a much better job of really talking about how essential public transit is, particularly in urban communities, because even though it may not affect folks who may be here right now, it does affect our future workforce, it does affect our young people as it relates to their education at the exact same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that probably the biggest difference between Milwaukee and other large cities is that we don't have traffic here. I think sometimes some people think that we do, and occasionally we might, but have you been to LA? And I think in cities that have a lot of traffic congestion, it really forces the issue for the business community, because if you can't start a meeting on time because everybody's stuck in traffic, that makes you think about transportation on a daily basis. Here, it's so easy to get around Milwaukee in your own car that it does kind of, to David's point, or County Executive Crowley's point, to put it, a little bit more on the back burner, and it's something that you kind of take for granted. But I think COVID taught us a lot of interesting lessons, not trying to go back to where many of us don't want to return, but the pandemic taught us what happens when, something comes along to really disrupt that dynamic. And, if you go to your favorite coffee shop and it's understaffed, if you go to your grocery store and the lines are out the door, because it's not staffed. That's what would happen if we didn't have this in our city. Your kids getting to school every day. I think it's because it's not that immediate kind of crisis level like it feels to be in Atlanta or Los Angeles or a city with a lot of traffic. It's incumbent upon us, to the county executive's point, to really make it real for people.
So if there's one certainty these days, it's uncertainty. You put up a slide, Dave, that showed that a significant amount of the FlexRide resources came from ARPA dollars, and no matter what, those dollars have to be spent by the end of 2026. So, no matter, that's not a decision that's been made at the federal level, that was at the start of ARPA. There's challenges about what's going on in Washington. The questions at the state are always, acute around transit funding. So, what situations are happening right now? Can you outline what do you need to do moving forward, and then how does it affect the transit system overall?
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that question, Joel. Welcome to my world. It's replacing $2.5 million per year when you're a small nonprofit is a tall order. But we have a base of support on which to build upon. Our fantastic partners in Waukesha County have funded FlexRide now for the last 3 years out of their transit budget. So this is dollars that comes from the same pot as the Waukesha Metro transit system. And that's a huge win for our program because it really frames FlexRide as what it is. It's a form of transit, a newer, different kind of form of transit. Just spending a lot of time making the case to members of the Joint Finance Committee. I'm going to be out in Madison again on Wednesday with several of our legislators, and these are conversations I really enjoy because we're talking about something new and something a bit different than what has come before, and I'm optimistic that folks that have been outside of the transportation conversation will feel more comfortable coming into that conversation. When we're talking about things like FlexRide and other types of innovations within CTS.
For Milwaukee County, we're continuously working with our state and federal partners to have this conversation. I'll be the first to say this is not a Democrat or Republican issue, right? This is not about partisanship, but it should be about partnership. And so for us, we've been having a lot of conversations at both the state and local level, the state, local, and federal level about how do we need these dollars to come back. So just to put things in perspective, when it comes down to Milwaukee County, when we are replacing buses, when we are investing capital within the Milwaukee County transit system, a lot of that, if not all of that, is coming from the federal government. Did I get that correct? Okay. A lot of that is coming from the federal government. And so when you talk about just being able to replace our aging fleet, if we're going to see dollars being cut from the federal level, that gives us a lot of concern because if the equipment is aging, how do we make sure that we can get people from A to Z? And the other thing is that we're also paying attention to what's been happening at the state level as well. There used to be $40 million that was set aside specifically for public transit within the transportation fund. Those dollars have now been removed from the transportation fund and placed in the general purpose fund. And while those dollars are still there, we know that now, because it's a part of the GPR fund, we're going to be competing with education. We're going to be competing with all these other entities now. And so we need that increase. We need to see those levels stay there to make sure that we can continue to invest, because it's not just Milwaukee County, there are other communities across the state that are also relying on these public transit dollars. And that $40 million has not really changed in many decades. So we want to see that increased. But again, it's going to take partnerships moving forward to make sure that we can save the current system that we have.
There's a time for playing offense and there's a time for playing defense. Offense, certainly in terms of the innovations that you've been able to do, and FlexRide is an example of. But I think it's safe to say that a lot of what we're doing now is playing defense. But you've got a room full of advocates here and well-informed, well-intentioned leaders in the community. What strategies do you have? What suggestions do you have around how do organizations like the GMC, the MMAC, others in the community, and individuals who represent big employers here, how do they effectively do that in this climate and on the issues that you're talking about?
Well, the first thing I would ask you all is get involved, right? How many of you are part of the Community Value Pass program? How many of you are advertising on our Milwaukee County transit systems to make sure that we're getting in enough revenue to have these conversations? But even as we talk about workforce development, I don't think that you can have a conversation around workforce development without talking about housing and transportation. And I think that the more and more we can get our business community, our philanthropic community, and everybody in our community talking about transit, because all of these things intersect in some type of capacity. And so it's extremely important for our businesses to really reach out to our transit system, figure out ways that we can partner. And I would say that when I think about our new internship program, that's one way is that we're trying to be innovative related to how we're bringing in our workforce. But even there was a report that was commissioned from the Policy Forum a couple of years ago, and that really informed our decision to create the Save the Bus type of campaign. And we need as many partners to join us in this campaign because we're going to be able to continue our system the way it is for the next year. But when we go into next year, thinking about the next budget, it's going to be very hard for us to maintain. So having your voices a part of the budget discussions now will be extremely important.
Absolutely, get involved. I'm going to bring up something very wonky sounding, but it's extremely important, and that's the gas tax. Probably don't think about that too much. Transportation in the United States is funded by a penny tax on every gallon of gasoline. And that was very sufficient in 1970 when everybody was rolling around in a Dodge Charger muscle car getting 5 miles per gallon. It doesn't cut it anymore. And you might be thinking, why is a transit guy talking about road funding? Well, that money is what transit primarily taps into as well. It's going to take a lot of political guts to fix that. Because to shift from a gas tax that most of us don't even really think about or know exist to a model where you're paying per mile is a huge leap. And several states are experimenting with this. California has little GPS tracker, it's a pilot. So they put GPS trackers into a car to track how many miles you're driving, and then you get charged by that. As you can imagine, that would be uncomfortable for a lot of folks. So as leaders in our communities, I think we need to have a real conversation about the way we fund roads in general, and transportation does not work. It's a 20th century model that needs to be updated, and it's going to take courage. The other thing I would say too, just broadly, embrace innovation. I think us transit advocates, and I've been a transit advocate for 30 years, we tend to go to Madison and elected officials with a vision, and this vision is you have your downtown hub and you have your spokes radiating off like wheels on a spoke, and that's the vision that we sell. And I'm an urban planner, and I love that vision. But that model of moving people around a region was already on its way out before COVID. And COVID, I think, stuck a fork in that idea, quite frankly, or that way that we all get around. So we're going to have to innovate. And I think when you go to an elected official that's not convinced, you have to meet people where they're at. And things like FlexRide, smart buses, things like the bus rapid transit system in Milwaukee, those are things that meet people more where they're at, rather than trying to kind of chase the mid 20th century downtown commuter with a suit and tie. Those people still do commute downtown, don't get me wrong, but not in the numbers as once in the past.
Can I double tap that comment?
Sure, just as long as Dave knows that he's offended everybody with a suit and tie. We can just start with
I'm
that.
also wearing a suit and tie.
One of the things so I learned this you talk about going with innovation, right? I think that, a lot of people are utilizing Lyft and Uber. Right, and I think that we have to understand that Lyft and Uber is convenient, but that is not public transit, because it can be quite expensive for many individuals. But to put things in perspective, right, because we never think about only certain types of people are able to use Lyft and Uber. Not everybody with a disability can actually use Lyft and Uber. And so you talk about innovation, particularly in I can't remember what state, but one of the things that they did is they put a very small cents tax on those ride shares to say that it had to go towards public transportation, because if there are people with disabilities, they will still have that transportation system that is there. And so while there are, again, new modes of transportation coming online, it's extremely important that we understand that not everybody has the ability to utilize the scooters, the ride shares, like all of us will be able to.
Final question for you. Dave, you started your presentation by saying that 10 years ago, the notion of getting off the airport and stepping into a stranger's vehicle, that was like the start of a horror film, right? I mean, now we all do it routinely, and that's part of innovation. David, you don't have much time to look forward, beyond the fiscal cliff that's coming, but if both of you could step outside that for a second, if you could picture the Milwaukee transit system in its entirety 10 years from now, what would be the most valuable thing about it? Or how would we know that that is doing what it should be for the community at that point and what we want to be?
I picture, of course, FlexRide zones, not just in our existing suburban communities, but other ones as well. And I think that I imagine microtransit fleets like ours, maybe with an MCTS logo on them, that our suburban counterparts, our friends in Waukesha County and suburban parts of Milwaukee County, they see that and say, oh, okay, so they're meeting a need here in my community. They can really kind of grab onto that and what that looks like. But to be very clear, that's one small sliver of the overall picture. It all comes down to the backbone of fast, frequent, and reliable fixed route service. So we make a big show about 30,000 rides a year, and we're really, really proud of that result. But meanwhile, Milwaukee County Transit gives 75 million a year. And I had a suburban mayor ask me one time, why don't we just replace the MCTS with all flexes, flex rides all over? And I said, well, you got $1 billion, mayor. I mean, it's but the point is that it's where it's meeting people where they're at. It's meeting the modern commuter. And the county executive is absolutely correct. An Uber or a Lyft costing $40 round trip is not a tenable proposition for folks. But believe it or not, before FlexRide, that's what our folks, many of our riders, were doing. And we're able to offer a service at $3 a ride, to that rider, mainly through, of course, our partnerships with public entities. So to answer your question, Joel, variety. I want somebody to drive through Milwaukee and think, wow, they got different things going on here. But at the end of the day, we all live near a mode to get us where we need to go quickly and reliably. And for most of us, especially those of us that live in the city, that's going to be an MCTS bus route.
I mean, for us, it's creating more efficiencies with our routes, making sure that all of our riders can get to where they're going, not only quicker, but safer. But it's also about how do we continue to expand our bus rapid transit system that we also have here, because we know it's something that people are yearning for every single day. And one of the other things that we're doing within Milwaukee County is when we talk about innovation, I mean, I don't think we've literally taken the buckshot approach and thrown everything to the window to see what will stick. I mean, when we talk about innovation and how ways that we can expand our services, we back up a little bit. So when you think about Milwaukee County Transit System, it is owned by the county, but it's operated by a nonprofit, right? And so when you think about all of our transit systems, not just Milwaukee County, but when you think about Waukesha, I believe the same thing with the HOP, those are operated by third-party vendors. And what the county is interested in, have been interested in doing is, when there's an RFP, how can we go after that RFP and actually become the operator? So we're not creating a regional transit authority, but now we have some synergy related to how we're operating and spending those dollars that's going to benefit the entire region. And so for us, we want to see, are those possibilities, do we have the possibility of doing that in the near future if we can't do the regional transit authority particularly at the state level? So we're going to continue to do what we can, but I will say, and I'm going to continue to harp on this, I may sound like a broken record, it's going to take partnerships. We're going to need, again, the state and federal government to really make incredible investments in public transit. Again, not just in Milwaukee County, but across this entire state and across the country, because so many people will need it as we continue to grow our workforce. And again, We're a great city on a great lake, but if our transportation options aren't solid, it's going to be hard for us to not only retain, but how do we recruit businesses and individuals to come to this region?
With that, we're done with this portion, and I really want to appreciate both you being here today and the work that you're doing. Like I said previously, we kind of have a bifurcated meeting today, and the last half hour here or so, last 25 minutes, we're going to talk about an issue that does inflame passion, I think, amongst this group and in the community. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Caselius here in a moment. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about her own biography, growing up in the Twin Cities, her work in Minnesota and Memphis and Boston, her work statewide in Minnesota, which has brought her here to Milwaukee. But she's been on the job since March 15th. And I'll remind people that when she was selected as the next superintendent for MPS, it actually was with the understanding that she would start at the end of the summer for the coming school year. And she decided, in concert with the leadership at the board and around MPS, that the matters were urgent enough that she should start immediately. So she started on March 15th at MPS, and just 4 days later, on March 19th, she attended the board of directors meeting for the GMC after we had a couple of conversations with her. And I think that set a tone, certainly with her and with some others in the community, about her accessibility, her sense of urgency on the job, and the enormity of the task in front of her. And so over the course of these last 8 weeks, many of us have held very honest and direct conversations with Dr. Caselius about the district, the way forward, how we can forge a different path that results in better outcomes for kids, since that is what we all want and what our community needs. I can safely say that she's taken part in conversations in places and with people who her predecessors, at least many of them, have not. She set a tone of transparency, honest dialogue, and changing the status quo. She's well aware of the difficult job ahead of her, and she's actively sought input and partnership. Dr. Caselius has joined several of us in discussions about what the appropriate and constructive role can be for the business and civic community. While these are still evolving, Dr. Caselius has been utterly transparent that her and the district's success is directly related to the ability to forge stronger partnerships within our community. In that spirit, we asked Dr. Caselius to identify immediate areas of concern that simply can't wait for the next MPS budget and for which she doesn't have immediate resources at her disposal. She identified needs in 4 key areas. Communications and rebuilding the public trust is one, change management and organizational restructuring is a second, third, leadership training and professional development, and finally, district culture and employee engagement. I want to highlight the others who have been most engaged in these conversations along with Dr. Caselius. Joanne Anton of Herb Cole Philanthropies, and Greg Wesley of the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. Incidentally, Greg is not here today because he's celebrating his son's college graduation in St. Louis. Armed with the needs identified by Dr. Caselius and knowing the urgency of making immediate and lasting change at MPS, over the last few weeks, we meaning Joanne, Greg, and I, along with others, asked the community to step forward and support her transition. The result of that is the MPS Superintendent Leader Impact Fund, which will be housed at the Greater Milwaukee Foundation and will enable Dr. Caselius to work with us to make changes in the areas she has identified. We anticipate that most of the funds raised will be deployed by year end, and much of the work will be done by the time school starts again this fall. And I'm proud that the organizations you see on the slide behind me, I think there's a slide that's going to be behind me, both corporate and philanthropic, have expressed support, made financial commitments of nearly $500,000 to date. The superintendent outlined a budget of approximately $550,000 for these tasks. We expect to have commitments to meet that entire need in the coming days. So I hope you'll first join me in thanking those here and elsewhere who have lent their support to that effort. Now, this support is important and hopefully sets a tone about renewed partnership, shared accountability, shared responsibility. while it doesn't guarantee that we'll be able to make all the necessary changes and do everything we need to honor kids with a stronger future, it provides Dr. Caselius with an opportunity to bring outside expertise to build or rebuild infrastructure that has lacked inside MPS for some time. It's a start, but it's in no way the end. Because the bottom line in any private fundraising effort and the collaborative work that's underway with Dr. Caselius is ultimately how we invest more wisely in classrooms, teachers, and kids, and how ultimately we deploy public resources in ways that result in dramatically better outcomes. Having known her just a few months, I know that Dr. Caselius is passionate about kids and their futures, and I introduce her now to say a few words to you.
Because you have a bad day, you go to kindergarten, you hug some kids. So I am just so incredibly grateful to you, Joel and Joanne and Greg, for really stepping up to the plate when I came and asked for a partnership. And I have met with several other business and community leaders and civic leaders, particularly grateful to the mayor for his support and County Executive David Crowley as well for his support. I feel like I can call up the leaders within this community and ask for help if people say, yes, I'm there with you, because you know why? Because you all care about our kids. And I really do see myself as the superintendent of Milwaukee's kids, not just MPS. MPS is obviously my very first priority because I came here for our kids who are most vulnerable and our kids who need me the most. But really, our kids go back and forth in the systems. We have families who have children in both systems right now, and we have to make it easier for our families to navigate the systems that Milwaukee has chosen. It's not my responsibility to figure out choice or public education or whatever type of education children go to. It's my job to make sure that the kiddos here get the best education that they can get in Milwaukee. And the way that we do that is by leveraging our shared resources of the city and the county and making sure that everybody has a place at the table. Every family, every child, every teacher, every civic leader, every business community, every nonprofit community, every type of school. So if there's resources that we can gather in Milwaukee Public Schools, I want to share that. I want to make sure all children get the benefit of the leadership and of the best ideas that we have to bring to this great city. I came up here and I was looking out this window going, oh my gosh, one, I'm a water baby, so I love water, because obviously I come from Minnesota, and so in Minnesota we have 15,000 lakes. So being able to come here to this beautiful city on the lake is just absolutely feels like home to me, and all of you have welcomed me and helped me to feel like home with not only this gift, but the many ways that I'm going to come and ask you to partner, particularly around the three things that I think are most important, which is early childhood education and making sure every single Milwaukee child has a great start. Second, making sure that we do a little catch-up. You know, we haven't gotten the results that we need in Milwaukee Public Schools. So we have a number of children who just honestly can't read. And they have to be able to read to be successful in their life. And so it is absolutely critical. So you'll see me take a strong focus on Tier 2, we call that Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention. So you'll see me starting to not only look at all of the teachers getting what they need, but taking a particular focus at middle school, because my background is middle school in my expertise area, and secondary school. And so making sure that our middle schoolers, especially at 6th grade, are getting ready for high school curriculum. We don't want to be watering down high school curriculum because students can't read. They need the rigor and the creative thinking and the critical thinking to be able to handle high school curriculum so that they can excel. The last thing you'll see me coming, particularly to our business and to our labor partners, is around career pathways and making sure that students know how to get into great paying jobs, whether that's a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, or maybe it's going right into an apprenticeship or an internship. And so creating those with our labor partners and with our community is going to be critical. So you'll see me doing some realignment in the district to be able to push resources out to schools, to fill vacancies that we have in our schools, to make sure that every single student has a caring and competent teacher, and that our district has and is known for having an organizational culture that everybody wants to work at. I think I'm pretty fun to work with. I'm pretty easy to work with. And so, we have several top-level leadership positions that are open within our district right now that this money particularly is going to help me go out and recruit and get the best of the best. The people who are both mission-driven and purpose-driven and care deeply about education, but also really know their craft and their practice and are experts within their field. We have a chief communications officer, we have a chief operations officer opening. I've just created a new position I'm super proud of chief of family and community engagement, which will also have partnerships, and we'll work with our own MPS Foundation to be able to drive the kind of partnerships and make sure that there's a good match and a good handout, and that they don't get lost in our large bureaucracy and just the largeness of MPS. So really, really excited about that. So I'm really, really happy to be here. I think I was supposed to tell a little bit about myself. Rather, I started with the work, but a little bit about myself. I grew up in Minnesota, in the Southeast Projects of Minneapolis, to a single mom. But my dad was part of my life. He just didn't live with us. And I grew up just really knowing that if I took advantage of all the opportunities that were brought to me within my community, there would be a great opportunity for me. And I never really believed that I couldn't ever achieve what I wanted to achieve. My dad said you might have to work twice as hard because you're a black woman, but you can do what you want to do if you get a good education and if you stay focused and you get the work done. And so when I was young, I was a Head Start baby. I had programs within we had the library bookmobile. How many remember the bookmobile? We had a bookmobile that came into the project, so I got to learn early, and I had a librarian who turned me on to all kinds of reading. I remember Harold and the Purple Crayon was my favorite book to read because you could imagine yourself anywhere and draw your future out. I was athletic. I still play hockey today, so I've been playing hockey for 15 years. My children are hockey players and enjoy that. I have 3 artists who are my children. My daughter is an art teacher at a high school. My son is a creative out in LA doing videography, working with influencers and production there. And my youngest son just graduated out of college as an artist as well, but he's busting tables right now. And that was a huge expense. But he will go into getting his master's in fine arts, and he wants to open up his own studio someday. So I'm just very blessed that way. I was just my professional career. I was a paraprofessional, so I started out. My very first job was working at St. Joseph's Home for Abused and Neglected Children, and that's how I kind of got my heart for working with children who are most vulnerable, children with disabilities, children who had experienced trauma and abuse. And then I went to be a teacher, and then I went to be a school leader, and I went to be a district leader. And I was in Memphis and Boston and Minneapolis and St. Paul as district administrators. And then I got my very first superintendency, and I wasn't there very long, and I got a call from Governor Mark Dayton asking me to be his Commissioner of Education. Said no at first, but when the governor asks you to step up, you can't say no to a million kids in the state. So it was a great joy. I thought I'd be in it a couple years. I was in for both terms of the governor's. When he decided to step down, I decided I wanted my legacy to step down with him because I had so much deep respect for him, and he always gave me everything I wanted for kids. If he had a surplus, half of that was going to kids, at least. And so I really loved that. And then I went out to Boston, got there 6 months, and the pandemic happened. I had 3 mayors. It's mayoral control there. So I had 3 mayors and 3 board chairs in 3 years while leading the pandemic. It was quite challenging, as all of you know, from the pandemic. Came back and got a job leading on climate for a nonprofit, and did that for 2 years, and just kind of felt that tug and wanted to come back. And Milwaukee knocked on the door. I've been looking at Milwaukee since 2018, by the way. But when they went internal, I decided to stay 1 more year, finish my year with Governor Mark Dayton, and then Boston opened, and then I came back, and there was change in leadership at the district level, but I had taken a job already and had only been in there for 1 year. We're right in the middle of 5-year strategic planning. I didn't feel like I could leave. So when they extended it again, I was like, okay, God keeps knocking at my door. I better say yes. And so this is the absolute perfect fit for me right now at this time. And I'm just so immensely grateful to be part of your community, to learn from you your hopes and dreams for the children, and to be able to deliver on the kind of achievement that we all want for our kids. And not just achievement, but for their families, stable housing, stable communities, working on our youth violence issues, within our communities to make sure that our children are safe and that they have good care and health care. And all of those connections that we can all do together, I'm hoping to be able to be a partner with all of you and bridge that for our kids. So really excited, immensely grateful to all of you for this gift. I'm going to use it to be able to drive the kind of change from the governor's operational audit. We'll be getting the academic audit in just a few weeks. I have had a preview of that. We have a lot of work to do to bring focus to our work, to realign resources and to build school level capacity. So the work gets done at schools and the work gets done in classrooms. Teachers have to be supported, and they have to have that capacity right there at their hands every single day with people within the school building that they have relationships with. And so you'll see a little shift as we try to push resources to schools, fill vacancies, make sure that we are taking care of our teachers and that they have what they need to succeed. So with that, I think I don't know if you have questions for me.
I'll wander this side of the room and Heather's on that side. So if you have a question for the superintendent, why don't you raise your hand?
Gosh, usually I'm here, and when I would go out to big meetings like this, I try to not talk very much. But since you're getting to know me, I took a few extra minutes. But I would have like staff with me too, and I'm like, I'll take the easy ones, you take the hard ones. Kind of here all alone, but I'm okay. Remember, I'm just learning.
Who's got questions?
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. When you think out 3, 4, 5 years, how are you going to measure success?
So one, hopefully it won't take 3 to 5 years to start seeing some growth with our students. So it's going to take focus. I don't think we'll see big changes in 1 year because I'm just getting here. I don't have the exact alignment that I think we're going to need to be able to drive big results in student achievement, but I think our students will start doing better on the forward tests, right? So we'll see that. We'll start seeing our NAEP scores going up, so some of those test scores will be. I think we'll also see enrollment grow. And so I think that, once confidence starts to build in our schools and people start to see the work that we're doing and they know that we're making progress, that they'll choose Milwaukee Public Schools. So I think we'll see enrollment grow. And I think that people will remark about Milwaukee Public Schools more positively. And so I think that's another way that you can see the remarkable work that we're doing. And then I think that our classrooms will be filled. People will want to come to Milwaukee Public Schools and work there and spend time with our children because success breeds success. And so as we tell those stories, as people say, well, that's a great place to work, then they'll want to come. And then I think you'll see just overall indicators in the community. I think you will see youth violence indicators go down. I think you'll see youth engagement go up in civic life. Graduation rates going up, attendance rates going up. Right now, I think about 50% of our students are coming or chronically absent from school, and 43% of our students with special needs are chronically absent for school. And so this is a huge problem for us. And so if school is a great place to be and kids feel welcomed and safe, and they're getting what they need in the academic areas and in their classrooms, and they're turned on by their classroom academics, then they'll come. And so when they're there, they learn.
Hi, Matt King, CEO at Hunger Task Force. First off, just welcome to Milwaukee.
Thank you.
And you spoke about the interconnectedness of all these things, and from our perspective, nutrition is a key component to our students' health, their ability to thrive and transcend their circumstance. And Milwaukee is consistently one of the worst ranking cities in terms of childhood poverty. And just wanted to get your perspective on your commitment to the nutrition programs in Milwaukee Public Schools and how we can improve those, because in Wisconsin, we also rank in the bottom 10 in the country in terms of participation in breakfast and lunch programs.
Well, full tummies, full minds. So food and nutrition is a top priority for me. We're already working on it. I've engaged with Kim Much, who used to lead up our programs and has worked nationally as a consultant. And so that's one of the things I'll use some of this funding for. When I went around and talked to students, they didn't care for our food very much. So, which isn't atypical of any school district when you go there. But Minneapolis Public Schools has the gold standard in food. Chef Bertrand Weber is over there, and kids get culturally responsive food. They get organics, they have farm to school, they grind their own meat, they grow their own food, they make their own hummus. It's amazing what they're doing there, and I want to bring that to Milwaukee Public Schools. We need a central kitchen to be able to do that, and so it's my quest to find some sort of commercial property where we can have a central kitchen. And so if anybody knows of anyone out there, these are the kinds of things I'm going to come to you for and ask for, to try to find that central kitchen. That's going to be key to being able to do our own meals the way that we want to do it, to emulate what's at Minneapolis. But it's absolutely beautiful program. If you have an opportunity to look up Minneapolis Public Schools food program, you'll know the vision that I want to bring to Milwaukee Public Schools. Our goal is this fall to have salad bars available for students. If we can do that in our high schools, it's short notice, but we're trying.
Hi, I'm Linda. This is a big question or politically charged question, but there's some recent articles about the voucher expansion or the decoupling potentially bankrupting MPS. Can you explain what's happening and what the issue is?
Well, I can tell you, just because I have a political history as state commissioner, and I'm going to always be transparent and honest, I have never been a supporter of voucher programs. So just so you know where I land on that issue, I want to be really honest about that. But it's not my job to come to Milwaukee and change what you have. So it's my job to just outcompete and to make sure that our schools are the best schools that parents want to choose. And so that's where I land on that issue. I've never been against charter schools. They're public schools, and they take public money. They're publicly accountable. I assume that's the exact same here in Wisconsin. I haven't had an opportunity to dig into this issue as much because my orientation on the issue is that's not my biggest issue right now. My biggest issue is getting our finances in order, making sure that we are using those appropriately, they're getting to schools and getting to classrooms, and that we're focusing our agenda on students and student achievement.
How is it funded now, and what is the proposal?
So I think, right now Wisconsin, I think, has one of the most lenient laws around voucher systems. And someone probably here is a better spokesperson than I am on vouchers, but what it is it's state money that is provided to families who want to choose to take the public money to another type of school other than the public school, which is typically a private school or a private religious school. And some families might choose a private religious school for their students, and I'm not going to argue with that, but for me, it can act as a disinvestment in the public commitment to public school.
We have time for one more question, Mark.
Hey, Dr. Castillo, Mark Thomas, and I'm the CEO of the American Red Cross,
Wonderful.
and I'm a proud NPS alum.
Yes.
Question for you. So, in your trials, in your travels, and in your experiences, what have you seen in terms of innovative ways to get the parents and guardians more involved with the children's school? I'm old school, and I know that when the people that you go home to and you respect the most are involved in your education, you stand a much better chance. And I don't know how effective we are currently, but how can we get more parents involved in schools? And I even like the transportation presentation. Maybe we can use some of those transportation dollars to get parents from their homes to the school so they can meet with the teachers and the faculty.
Yeah, well, first I'll tell the Daves, when you're working on transportation, if we can be of any help or part of a solution, you know, obviously we have hundreds of buses on the road and thousands of students that we transport every day. So if there's the efficiencies we can do together, let me know. I'd be into that. As for getting parent and community engagement, I'm creating an office for family and parent engagement. That's the first thing, is symbolically and structurally within the organization showing the value of parents and community and partnerships, and making sure that all of that has attention and top focus as a cabinet level position in the district. The second is to make sure that you are fixing your communications with families and that you're communicating in ways that they actually understand and know and can be engaged in, and that they feel is transparent and honest kind of communication. So I want to make sure that our communication systems, internal and external to the organization, are clear, transparent, and understandable and easily accessible. A lot of times parents just don't know. They don't get the information. Second, I think all parents actually want to be involved in their kids' education as much as they can, and some of our parents are working 2-3 jobs. Some of our parents have language barriers, so we want to remove any kind of language barriers by having our items translated, making sure that you have interpretation, simultaneous interpretation opportunities, so that they aren't getting the same messages 2-3 days later than our English parents are getting it, English-speaking parents are getting it. So accessibility in that, going out to the community and hosting events in the community, at the churches, at the places where they shop and go to groceries. You can have booths available at fairs and get-togethers and parent open houses to make sure that you're engaging families. And then really being earnest about hearing families and listening to families. So oftentimes families don't feel like you really care. You know, they're not part of the planning process. And so you got to put in that. So what I'm going to have is monthly meetings. I'm hoping that the alderman, a board member, and our parent coordinators, who we have in all of our schools, by the way, which is wonderful, will go and host town halls each month. So there'll be information below and information up, both flowing in the both directions. So if we have a policy we're bringing, we can have that be heard in all of the different, there's 8 different districts in the city. They can go and they can hear that. And then we can get information back up to the board that way. And then there'll be 2 specific new committees that I'm putting together that are, one for parents with students with special needs, because their concerns are often very different than all the rest and they need their own space. And the other one is for parents with multilingual learners. So that we can be sure that we are absolutely hearing their concerns and making sure that our communities are listening to their concerns as well. So those are some ways in shared decision making, some ways in information sharing, and some ways in making sure that we're engaging and partnering with our community.
Thank you, Dr. Casalius. I can tell you that we invited Dr. Casalius to the GMC board meeting and told her, you know, and she had a busy schedule that day. If you have like 15 minutes, you can, you know, just introduce yourself and go. An hour later, she was still answering our questions. So, you know, I can guarantee you that access and accessibility are something that are going to be the hallmark of her as long as she is around. We appreciate you being here today. I'm going to turn it over to Dave to close us.
Thanks, Joel. This partnership with MPS holds us all accountable for changing educational outcomes for Milwaukee's youth. I know that every single person in this room has a vested interest in Dr. Casalius' ability to be successful in her role and in turn offer a brighter future to so many students. I look forward to learning more and sharing how this partnership evolves. Thank you to both County Executive Crowley and Dave Steele for your time today. Transit solutions offer a great amount of economic mobility for so many in our community.
Our next meeting, June 9th, at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Go Panthers. And for today's giveaway, we have a gift card to Niche Book Bar. The winner is Mark Thomas. Thank you.